It's time for your Low Country Real Estate Market Update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate you taking a little time on your weekend to listen to me talk about real estate here in the Low Country area. Been doing this for close to 2 years now and just enjoy being on the air talking about my experiences as a top agent in our market. And just, if you've listened to my show in the past, then I like to talk a lot about data, but I also like to give a lot of just information that I think helps the general public when it comes time for them to either buy or sell or invest in real estate. So if that's something you're considering doing, or if you just enjoy staying up to date with what's going on in our real estate market and how it affects you, then again, just wanted to say thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to reach me at any point in time during the week, I am a real estate agent. Feel free to call me at 843-345-1273. That's my cell phone. You can call or text that number. Or you can go to my website, www.listingsincharleston.com. And on that website, you can search the MLS, take a look at everything I have for sale, everything I've sold recently. And if you're considering selling your home, click on the Sell Your Home tab. You can learn a little bit more about my 59-day home sale guarantee at 4.5% commission. So let me tell you what I want to talk about this weekend. I have had more than usual several questions about whether or not we are creating a new real estate bubble. Is a new real estate bubble forming? Is it forming nationally? Is it forming here in the Low Country? So I want to answer that question, and I want to get really specific about where we have been over the past 5 to 7 years and then where we are now. So that's what we're going to talk about first. A little bit later on in the program, I had a great sit down with a potential client, and he asked some very straightforward questions. So I wanted to take some of the questions that he asked me and just elaborate a little bit on that, because it was a very good meeting. It was a very straightforward meeting. It was, Brian, share with me your opinion on this, this, and this. And it was something that I really enjoyed sitting down and talking to this person because they were a straight shooter, and I like working with those types of people. So he had a few questions that he asked that I thought would just be great content for this program, and a few other questions that I'll tie into that. A little bit later on in the program, we're going to talk about if your home has been on the market for an extended period of time, whether it be several months, several years, several agents, for sale by owner, it's been off the market as a withdrawn or expired listing. What do you need to do right now to sell your house? So I'm going to take you through some steps there. And then lastly, unfortunately, this happens not just now, but in any time in our market. Properties go under contract, things don't work out. So I want to talk about how to bounce back after a buyer or seller backs out of an agreement. So I want to give you some key points there, something to help you through that in the event that has happened to you. Hopefully it doesn't, but it'd be good to be armed with this information so that in the event it does, you are prepared. So let me talk first about this real estate bubble question. And let me go back in time a little bit, because I think a lot of people have almost forgotten about just how bad it was back in 2008. So remember back to 2008 when our market was crashing. Here's one of the many reasons why it decided to crash. Wall Street, in its search for profits, like it's always doing, created products based on pooling together very risky subprime mortgages and calling them collateralized debt obligations. And they were selling these on the stock exchange as gold-plated ratings, meaning they were equal to U.S. Treasuries, and selling them off in huge chunks in droves to investors. They were buying them and created this environment where lenders, now having kind of this source to dump their subprime loans off on, just started turning and burning. They started doing as many mortgages as they could. They created ridiculous products like a no documentation, stated income, stated asset loan. You had to pay a higher interest rate, but you could get a loan. Of course, those aren't around anymore. But these lenders started taking advantage of the situation, started creating some products that shouldn't have been out there. And then, of course, buyers and sellers and investors in our inherent need for income decided to pull equity out of our properties for the sake of speculating and purchasing more homes. Or you have the extreme examples where people would buy a property, they'd get it appraised. A year later, they'd have, $150,000 worth of equity. They'd pull out that equity. They'd either buy something personal in nature, like cars, boats, so on and so forth. They were living the high life. Or they'd take it out, they'd speculate on it, they'd leverage that property, and then they'd go and buy a few more. And as long as the pricing was going up and the credit was available, they kept doing it. So you've got these kind of average Joes that are now owners of a dozen properties. And he has little to no equity in any of them, but he's purchasing them and he's banking on the idea that prices are going to continue to rise. Well, of course, what happened? Our market crashed. Everything went haywire. We ended up having to bail out numerous institutions to the tune of billions of dollars in U.S. taxpayer dollars. And then, of course, you hear the stories about some of these large CEOs of these companies just stuffing that money in their pockets or going on elaborate corporate vacations and so on and so forth. That's kind of a separate story, but that's where we were. And so we had to create an environment and a foundation where we had the ability to recover. So we started doing things like the first-time homebuyer tax credit. And we did things like forgiving the difference between the amount owed and whatever you sold it for if you were to do a short sale. It's called the South Carolina Debt Forgiveness Act of 2007, I believe. That's no longer in place, unfortunately. Hopefully it will be. But they started putting all these programs in place so that buyers could continue to buy, sellers could continue to sell, and our market could just begin to recover. Well, now we're, of course, at the point where our market is recovering. We're not fully recovered because we still got 10 million people that are underwater in their homes. They don't have enough equity to pay the commission and closing costs to sell their property and then pay the expense associated with moving into something else. In other words, if they're going to sell it just for the sake of renting out, they're not going to sell and then go rent something. They're going to sell with the idea that there's enough equity there to sell it and then go and buy something else. So we still have that issue. And as prices rise, as sales rise like they're doing right now, it will create a more favorable environment. But are we creating a bubble? I think bubble is a touchy word, and I don't think that we are creating a bubble yet. But I want you to think about something else. Think about the fact that all those sales are increasing in volume and prices are increasing basically across the board in the Tri-County area. Where are interest rates? Interest rates are still incredibly low. They're still at around 4.25%. So if you're listening to this, you're considering buying. This isn't a ploy for me to say, hey, act now because I want to earn commission income. What I'm saying is think about things from the big picture here. We are just now at a point where our head is above water and we're beginning to recover. If our boat crashed, we're now swimming to the beach. We now see that island and we're making our way there. We're not there yet. But if you're considering buying or you're considering selling, take advantage right now of the fact that there's little inventory out there and just listen to the old adage of buy low, sell high. And buy low could either be, buy low in terms of price or it could be buy low in terms of the availability of inexpensive credit, i.e. 4.25% interest. And then you've got some loan programs now coming out where on a jumbo product, you can only put 10% down. That's great. It used to be 20, 25%. So things continue to change in our market. Things continue to get better. And that's just the point. That's what's happening. Things are getting better. They haven't fully corrected, but I do want to make it a point that at some point in time, interest rates have to go up. We've got to be able to start charging a little bit more interest in association with all the things that we've had to pay for to get out of this mess, if that makes sense. So I don't think a bubble, quote unquote, is forming. I think that we're doing a great job in terms of recovery. I would like to see that the recovery be a little bit more based on job growth and wage increases rather than just a limited supply of homes. Sellers, if you're considering selling, get your house on the market now. Now is your best time to sell. So anyways, coming up next, I want to talk about some questions that were asked of me in a very straightforward listing presentation that I just thought was great. I really enjoyed it. If you'd like to reach out to me, 843-345-1273, or visit my website, listingsincharleston.com. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA, and I'll be right back.
Visit Brian Beatty's website at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. WTMA. Now, here's more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Thanks again for joining me this morning. If you're just tuning in, we were just talking about whether or not Charleston is entering into a new real estate bubble. And I kind of took a step back and I went back in time and I talked about how bad things used to be in 2008 and what got us there and really how we've been able to get through this process over the past 5-7 years so that now we're really set up as a market for growth and for appreciation and for all those positive things that we expect from a normal market and a healthy market here in the Charleston area. So if you have any questions about that, if you're just tuning in and you'd like information on what's going on in your neck of the woods, maybe something specific to your home, your neighborhood, your area, happy to comment on that. No cost, no obligation for you to just give me a call or send me something through my website so we can have a quick chat about it. My phone number is 843-345-1273 and my website, listingsincharleston.com. I sat down with somebody a few days ago and we had a great meeting. It almost lasted 2 hours because we just really clicked. And he asked some very straightforward questions of me after listening to my program. And I just thought the questions in and of themselves were great questions to ask because it really, I think for him, helped him understand why real estate agents do what they do. Why is it that most real estate agents talk a good talk but don't walk the walk? And what needs to be done? What are the common sense things that agents should be doing that they're not doing? So I want to comment on that. And some of the things that I'm going to say are from some other appointments and from some other experiences that I've had in the past. But I'd say that if you're listening, just use this as an idea of kind of getting inside the mind of a real estate agent, because I really want to focus on how our industry has changed over the past several years and what that means for a client from a customer service standpoint, communication, which is always an issue whenever I sit down with somebody who had their house on the market and it didn't sell. And then how people search for real estate and how people market homes. One of the first questions that were asked of me, and I think that this was a good question to start off with, is how do you deal with the inevitable stress associated with negotiating a contract and just selling a home or buying a home in general? And it's taken me a while to really understand how to get people through transactions with very little stress. Now, I will say this, it is almost impossible. I haven't had one. I'm sure that there might be a few out there, but I have not had a transaction to date that did not have some element of stress. It's a very big move. We're talking about a lot of money. There are a lot of moving parts. You throw things like family and summer and school and all of that stuff into the mix, and it's going to be stressful. So we started talking about how I have my team set up and how, obviously I can't be everywhere and I can't answer my phone immediately at all times of the day. When I'm sitting down with a client, I give them my full attention. So I don't answer my phone. Now, if it's an emergency and I know that I'm expecting something, then maybe there's an exception to that. But when I'm sitting down with a client, I am fully engaged with them. And I think most people appreciate that rather than, oh, excuse me, I need to take this sales call. So I have a team of people that helps me with that. And the idea here is if you need to reach me or you need to reach someone on my team, we are available. There's a whole lot that goes into creating a stress-free transaction. or a reasonably stress-free transaction. And you've got to understand that there are different types of people that negotiate real estate. And this happens both with real estate agents and, of course, with buyers and sellers. But you've got, on one end of the spectrum, someone that's incredibly emotional about the process. And they are concerned and they inject their feelings into the transaction, and maybe they're willing to go the extra mile for somebody because they were really nice and they were really respectful, which is how I prefer to operate with people, is to be professional and to be friendly. But when I'm negotiating for my client and I'm talking to that other real estate agent, I'm there to be friendly and professional, but I'm not necessarily there to be buddy-buddy with them, because I think that opens up the door for slip-ups. And I frankly, I take advantage of it all the time. I'm good at talking to agents and getting information out of them that I can use to our advantage. And most real estate agents don't even realize that I'm doing it. It's just something that I've been able to do as someone that's been in the top % of this market since 2009. But you've got some people that are incredibly emotional, and it's just a roller coaster for them to get through the process of buying or selling a house. And there's only so much that they can take. That's why when you hire a real estate agent, sometimes I am used as a sounding board. Sometimes I am used as someone for you to yell at. Now, I understand that you might not be yelling at me. You're yelling at the situation, and that's okay. I signed up for it. I understand what goes on in this business. I understand that emotions run high. And if you need to get stuff off your chest, I'd rather you say it to me than to say it to the other client directly, because sometimes it can have a negative impact on the transaction. So you've got some people that are incredibly emotional, and it takes a real estate agent that's level-headed and straightforward in their approach to mitigate that stress and get them through the transaction to their financial benefit. Then you've got the other people that are just pure business. You know, I'm not injecting emotion into this transaction. This is purely money-driven. I'm an investor. I'm only going to pay X because at that price, my numbers work. Anything above it, it doesn't. I don't care. It's just numbers. It's just business. Most of the time, you find a blend of the two. And usually it's a husband and a wife. The husband will be the tough negotiator and the wife will be the emotional one. Obviously, that flip-flops, and you've got all types of situations there. But handling the stress associated with a transaction is something that the real estate agent needs to have a good grip on, because as a real estate agent, if I were hot-headed or if I were emotional in nature and I let those feelings get the best of me, and then I go and I say something to the other agent that's kind of a slip up, that's going to have an impact on the transaction. And most of the time, it's not going to be a good one. So I thought that was an interesting question to start off with. Again, if you're just tuning in, we're talking about some questions that have been asked of me from a listing appointment that were just straightforward questions that I really enjoyed answering, because I'm a truthful, straightforward real estate agent, and anybody that's hired me knows that I'm not a BSer. I'm here to say the facts, and I'm of course here to connect with you emotionally, and I fully understand what you're going through. But when it comes time to negotiate, or it comes time to get through that transaction, I'm here to help you, not necessarily play into the emotional aspects of this transaction. So moving on. He asked, why don't real estate agents do more broker open houses? You know, I know that some real estate agents try to do it. Some companies try to do it. It just seems like most real estate agents in this area don't want to do it. And that's true. I have had some magnificent properties that are very exclusive in nature. And I have tried to hold some broker open houses, some of which have been successful, but most of which have not been successful. And I think the reason for it is that for the most part, real estate agents are lazy. They're going to just go online. They're going to look at the listing. They're going to look at the pictures. They're going to read the description. If they have someone interested, they'll bring them by. But as an industry, I personally would love to have more broker open houses and introduce my properties to brokers and to neighbors and to interested buyers. It's just the way that people search for real estate now has changed so much that people that go to open houses, for the most part, are tire kickers. They just want to go. They want to walk inside a house and see what the deal is. They may or may not be interested in buying. But the fact of the matter is, if they are interested in buying, they're going to go online. They're going to create an incredibly detailed search because they have the ability to, for free, without the use of a real estate agent most of the time and find exactly what they want. And it doesn't matter if you're selling a $100,000 house or a $1 million house. Most people use the exact same tactic, and statistics suggest that 95% of people start their search online. So broker open houses are kind of becoming a thing of the past. Now, if we were in New York or LA or, some of those luxury markets that you see online, or not online, but on TV, like $1 million listing, those are incredibly exclusive properties. Sometimes they'll have those broker opens before the listing goes public as a way to sell it quickly. And the agents subscribe to it. And that's the big deal, is that the agents are all about it. Here in Charleston, just doesn't seem like we can get that momentum going. Even agents in my own office, it's just a struggle. And I wish that it weren't the case, but the fact of the matter is most real estate agents would prefer to sit at home, pull it up online, look at the pictures, and call it a day. I tell you what, I'm going to take a break. And when I come back, I'm going to get through another question or two that I just wanted to bring to your attention, because I think it's helpful to understand why real estate agents do what they do and why they say what they say and then do something else. If you've listened to my show in the past, you know that I don't necessarily have a very high opinion of most real estate agents. There are some that do a fantastic job, and I fully respect them. But there are others that just, I think they're almost a liability to their client. Now, as a real estate agent, sure, I'll take advantage of that, and I'll help my client get a better deal through their inability to identify things in a contract that are important, or so on and so forth, whatever the case might be. But I want to have a few more of these questions answered just to give you an idea of how real estate agents think. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Don't forget to give me a call with any personal questions, comments, concerns, 843-345-1273, or visit my website, listingsincharleston.com.
Hear the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show every Saturday morning at 8 on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. WTMA. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Welcome back. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. Thanks again for joining me this morning. If you're just tuning in, we've talked about a few things already this morning. We've talked about whether or not Charleston is entering into a new real estate bubble, which I don't think it is. We're just in a good time in our market right now. No need to be alarmed just yet. And then we talked about some questions that were asked of me of a seller that I just really connected with. Thought it was a fantastic sit down. It was an interview, but it was also just a conversation. And wanted to share with you some of the questions that were asked of me just about real estate agents in general, and then relay that information to you so that you have an idea of how real estate agents really are operating their businesses, because I think that it matters. And if you're sitting down with a seller, or a listing agent, and they're feeding you all of this information during their marketing plan presentation, and you ask some very specific questions and they kind of dodge it, this might help you understand why. So before I get into some of these last few questions, and then I want to talk about withdrawn, expired, and for sale by owner sellers, if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call. If you're considering buying or selling or investing in a home, I would love the opportunity to earn your business. My number is 843-345-1273, or you can go to my website, listingsincharleston.com, and take a look at everything for sale in the Tri-County area. You can look at my listings. You can look at everything I've sold recently. And if you're considering selling your home, click on the Sell Your Home tab, and you can learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee at 4.5% commission. So listingsincharleston.com is the website to do that. Two more questions that I wanted to get through with this particular person that I just thought were great questions. And one of them was this. He had his house on the market previously, and he said, why don't real estate agents call before and after showings? Focusing on the before first. Wouldn't it make sense, especially if you're selling a luxury property or just a home that is unique in nature, for the listing agent to, at a very minimum, call the agent that's going to show the property and say, hey, thank you very much for showing this home. If you have just a few minutes, I'd love to give you a few items about the house that we think are really unique. And, if you want to point these out to your buyer, I think that there's some selling points that should really be focused on. And then you go through that very short conversation with that agent, whom, if they have any appreciation whatsoever for that information, are going to use it to their advantage to help that person buy that house. Ultimately, agents want information so that they can create a sale. After all, what are they doing? They're trying to sell a home. So if, as a listing agent, I have a unique property for sale, and I do this with my properties. If someone expresses an interest in going to take a look at it, I want to have a quick conversation with them first so that I can determine, first and foremost, what their time frame is and whether or not they're seriously interested. Because if it's just a tire kicker, or if it's just somebody that says, yeah, well, they're considering retiring in the Charleston area in a few years, and they just want to gain a sense for, what they could afford should they decide to retire here in a few years. Well, depending upon the seller's motivation to sell, we might just say, hey, we appreciate that. Please keep us in mind if they decide to move to Charleston. But it's too much stress for the seller to go through the process of getting their home ready to sell. So we appreciate that, but we're not going to show the property. Or, of course, on the flip side of that, they're very interested in the property, and you give them information that they otherwise wouldn't have known or might not otherwise have known. Little things, too. Sometimes the little things can be very important to people. So you just have a conversation with them. You feel them out, you find out what's important to them, you find out what their time frame is, and then you relay that to the seller so that they feel good about getting their house ready and that it's not a waste of their time. We've focused a lot on my team on creating quality showings rather than just, hey, 50 showings. I need 50 showings in order to get a contract. I don't necessarily want to put my seller through the process of having 50 different people go through her house or his house. I'd rather have 10 really good showings. And one of the best ways to do that, and one of the best ways to manage that, is to just have a simple phone call with the agent before they show up. And so the question is, why aren't real estate agents doing that? It's because they're lazy. We have something in our MLS called Showing Time, and it's very easy to show property. And I'll give the process itself credit because it makes things a lot easier. So if I'm a buyer agent, I can go in the MLS, I can choose 5 properties, I can put them in on this website, I can choose the times that I want to see the homes, and I click send, and then this third-party company does all the rest. They call the sellers, they call the agents, they schedule everything, and they just report back to me on whether or not I'm approved to see it and what the showing instructions are. And then from a listing agent standpoint, all they have to do is sit back and watch the showings come in, and that same surface automatically prompts them for feedback once they've finished their showing. So usually what most real estate agents do is they just sit back, they let the showing occur, they wait for the feedback, and then they forward that feedback to their client, and they really didn't have to do anything. So I would prefer to be much more proactive in nature. I'd rather have a conversation with that buyer agent, find out what it is that's important to them, and then sell them on the features of the house that fit that buyer's needs. After all, you're hiring a salesman at the end of the day. Let's be honest. You're hiring a salesman to sell your home, or saleswoman. You want to make sure that you're having every opportunity possible to convert an interested buyer into a contract. And the same thing goes with online shopping. You want to have an agent that fully understands how to take all this online traffic that's being produced and funnel it down to potentially interested people. Get them through the house, create more opportunities for offers. So that's my spiel on that. If you have any questions, if you're facing difficulty in selling your property, if you just haven't been able to get the job done, maybe it's sitting off the market right now, you're taking a break, let's have a chat. There are some things that can be done that are not that hard to do that have had a dramatic effect on the overall sale of the property. And almost 60% of what I sell these days were previously listed with another real estate agent. So I go in, I'm already dealing with an issue where the seller's upset, they're frustrated, their level of trust and confidence in real estate agents in general is little to none. And I have to kind of start that process of rebuilding. And I do that through good customer service and communication and just doing what I say I'm going to do. Imagine that, how unique, right? So anyways, if you have any questions or if you're considering selling your house, give me a call. Happy to talk to you about it. It might be that you're considering selling sometime next year. Whatever the case might be, happy to just have a chat with you and see how I can help. My number, 843-345-1273. Or again, go to the website, listingsincharleston.com. On that same note, if you're a withdrawn listing, in other words, you had it on the market for X number of months or years, and you just decided to take it off for a while, or if you're an expired listing and you had an agreement with a real estate agent, they didn't get it done, and now it's off the market. Obviously, those two statuses are evidenced by the overwhelming number of calls and letters and emails and people showing up at your doorstep to list your home. And one of the biggest scams, in my opinion, which I just absolutely hate, is when an agent will call up a homeowner and say, "Oh, I noticed that your home came off the market and I have a buyer for your house. When can I come by and take a look at it?" And of course, any smart seller is going to say, "Well, where were you when we were on the market for 6 months?" "Well, we've got plenty of buyers that want to see it. How many buyers do you have?" And this one person said that this agent said, "Well, we have thousands of buyers every day." He's like, "Okay, great. So you're just feeding me a line so you can get into my house and pitch a marketing plan and potentially list your home with me. Why not just say that from the beginning? Why not just be honest with people? Why not say, 'Hey, my name is Brian Beatty. I sell a lot of real estate in the area. I noticed your home came off the market. It hasn't been put back on the MLS. If you're considering hiring a listing agent, I'd love an opportunity just to have a chat with you to see how I might be different from your previous agent and how I might be able to help you get the job done.' Would that be okay?" It's so much different. But, if you're a withdrawn or expired, or if you're for sale by owner, you haven't got a contract yet, here are a few things that you can do. Number one, take a good, hard look at your property as it appears online. Are there pictures that you're missing? Do the pictures make sense? Do they tell kind of a story? Do they start with the front of your house and then walk through, and then, from the entry for you go to the kitchen, and then from the kitchen you go to the family room, and then you show a picture of how they connect. And then you go upstairs and you do the master bedroom and the master bathroom, and then afterwards you go outside and you show the porch and the backyard, and then you show the amenities in the neighborhood, and then you show shopping in the area. Whatever the case might be, does your property tell a story? Or are they just random pictures all over the place? Do the pictures not look good? I've harped on this almost on this radio show about bad pictures hurt when selling your property. It's the truth. It's the truth. If you've ever been out and you've been shopping for a house or a car or a boat or whatever, and the pictures are suspect, you're just going to move right past it. It. So take some time and determine whether or not the pictures are appropriate. And those are, in my opinion, are issues with the real estate agent. The real estate agent should be telling you what needs to be done to increase your chances of selling. And that's something that I focus on a lot, is just consulting with sellers to say, these are the things that I would suggest doing. You don't have to do them, but it's going to affect the price. And if we do these few things, then maybe we can get this much more for your house, or at least for the day of pictures. Let's walk through your house, and for that day, let's move a few things around here and there. Let's declutter. Let's make the room look as big as possible. Maybe we take a flower arrangement and we use it a few different areas. And let's just have pictures for that day be stellar. Let's make them look as good as we possibly can. Those are the things that really need to be discussed at the beginning with the real estate agent, so that you have your best chance of selling fast rather than sitting on the market for X number of months or years or whatever the case might be. I've got a few more tips and tricks for you. I am going to take a break. Again, this is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. If you'd like to reach out to me, 843-345-1273, or visit my website, listingsincharleston.com. I'll be right back.
More stimulating talk on real estate matters with Brian Beatty, next on 1250 WTMA. WTMA. Now, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues on Charleston's Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. Thanks again for joining me this morning. Hopefully so far this program has been informative and gives you an insight into the mind of the real estate agent, which I think is going to be the topic of this show, which is, what are some of the things that real estate agents say they do, or why is it that some real estate agents do this, that, and the other, and others are just completely different? So I've enjoyed kind of sharing with you some of the answers that I've given in some listing presentations recently, from sellers that are just very astute, very interested sellers in terms of, why do real estate agents do the things that they do? And I think it boils down to this for the most part. By and large, real estate agents rely on tools, systems, processes to do their job for them. Sometimes that's okay. I'm not knocking the systems. I'm a big systems guy because it makes my life easier. But they're missing the big component, which is that when you hire a real estate agent, the real estate agent really needs to be someone that embodies the persona of a salesman. You know, if I'm a listing agent, you hire me to sell your house, it's my job to leave no stone unturned and to do everything I can to find the most buyers possible, to get them interested in your house by providing them with accurate information, and then getting you through that process as smoothly and as stress-free as possible and to your financial benefit so that we can get the job done. And a lot of what I've talked about this morning is just the fact that real estate agents, for the most part, are lazy. They don't want to go the extra mile. And maybe that's why, well, it is why, there are some real estate agents that do a fantastic job in our market. A lot of respect for them. And then there are some other real estate agents that you can never get them on the phone. They take forever to answer emails. It's just like, what are you doing? I need you to respond. And I've said this before and I'll say this again, until the numbers change, but in order to be in the top 10% of real estate agents in our market, you only have to sell about a dozen homes a year, about one a month. The statistic has changed a little bit this year. I think it's like 14 homes a year, but that means that 90% of our realtor population is selling less than one home a month. And I'm telling you right now, folks, it's hard to make a living when you're selling one home a month. You can do it, but you certainly don't have the ability to reinvest much in your business. Much less have a large marketing budget to find buyers where other agents that are at the top of their game have massive marketing budgets, all designed to create interest for your home. Some, of course, take it a different route and they promote themselves rather than their properties. And that's fine too, as long as people are connecting with them, I suppose, then they're going to sell them something somewhere. I would much prefer to invest my marketing money into the properties and the systems that I use to find buyers for my properties, rather than just, hey, here I am. I'm the best real estate agent in the universe. I'll sell your home and blah, 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 or I'll buy it. Not picking on anybody, but I'm just saying that my marketing is different from some of the more traditional marketing that's taught once you get to that top level in sales. So one of the last questions that I wanted to answer on this radio program that was asked of me is, why don't we learn more about pricing on a consistent basis rather than just having one large discussion about pricing at the very beginning when we decide to list our home? And this is something that's incredibly common, and I see it all the time. And as I mentioned, I work with a lot of sellers that previously had their home on the market for sale and it didn't work out for whatever reason. And I'm learning that real estate agents, they'll have a good conversation about price. They'll set a price. Sometimes it's realistic. Most of the time it's not if they haven't sold. But then they don't have the guts, quite frankly, to go back to the seller and say, hey, we've been on the market for 60 days or 90 days or whatever the case might be, and this price just isn't working. In fact, if we look at the comps and we look at what's changed over the past 60 to 90 days, the trends in our market suggest that we should be listed at this. But that's not something that they're going to tell you because for the most part, real estate agents don't want to lose the listing. Or they don't want to tell you that price because that price might mean that they shouldn't have taken your listing in the first place because it's less than what you actually want to sell it for, which means you can't sell. But they'd rather have their sign in their yard. They'd rather have people call the sign, get leads, than really help you and be honest with you in terms of what your house is actually worth. And I'm going through this right now with a seller. We're not on the market yet, but he wants to list here. I've told him that I understand why he would say that, but I can't promote a property at that price because I have no market data to support it. We need to be here in order for you to accomplish the goals that you've told me you need to accomplish. And I think that ultimately we'll get to that price, but I think that there are plenty of real estate agents out there that would say, oh, well, yeah, let's try that price for 60 days or 90 days. And if it doesn't work out, then we can have another conversation about it. But you know what happens is it totally kills the momentum that you have when you're a new listing in the market. So that kind of parlays into the last thing that I want to talk about, which is what happens if your property goes under contract and it falls through and now you've got to get back on the market. You've got to find a new buyer. What happens? How do you get through that process to the best of your ability. So any questions before that or anything that you're thinking about, feel free to go to my website, send me a little message. Happy to help you in any way I can throughout the week. 843-345-1273 is my cell, and that website is listingsincharleston.com. So let's say you put a property under contract and you get through the inspection, and the buyer says, we're not happy with the results of the home inspection, and we are choosing to be released from contract. The seller says, well, I suppose that's your right to do that. And in most situations, as long as that buyer has submitted that release of contract within the time frame in the contract, and the contract's written properly, some people put at the very back of the contract in the contingency section, contingent upon satisfaction of all inspections, period. And it's this open-ended language that allows all these different lawsuits to go in different directions, in that because you had that open-ended language in the contract, you could get out of the contract at any time. Most real estate agents don't realize that. If I'm a seller, or if I'm a seller's agent, and somebody submits an offer to me, and at the back of that contract it says contingent upon buyer satisfactions with all inspections, I'm striking right through it, because the contract already clearly identifies the process should a buyer not be interested in moving forward based on the findings of a home inspection. But you've got to have a time frame associated with it. So anyways, let's say that you get back on the market. I had somebody that wrote an email to me and shared their story, and they said that we went under contract in about 3 weeks after being on the market. We were getting a showing almost every day. In fact, we had close to 20 showings in that 3-week period. We went under contract. Things were going well. The buyer was using 100% financing. They were a first-time home buyer using a VA loan. And at the very tail end of the home inspection period, he submitted a release of contract stating that he didn't want to move forward with the purchase of the property. It was his right to do so. As a seller, you can't force a buyer to buy anything if they're contractually protected based on their home inspection findings. So it went back on the market, and she said, well, I've been on the market for a week. I've only had one showing. What can I do to make sure that I'm getting the same level of activity I was getting before? And so my quick answer to that, if you're listening, because I said that I was going to comment on that this weekend, is first and foremost, whenever the property changes from contingent status back to active status in the MLS, it creates this chain reaction where, first and foremost, all the buyers that are searching in that price range, that have had searches created by their real estate agents, they're going to receive an email, and it's going to say back on market, and it's going to have the information on your house. So everybody should have been informed that it was going back on the market just by the way our MLS works. From there, different websites treat properties that are under contract differently. So some might say that if it's under contract, we're not going to display it. Others say if it's under contract, we're still going to display it. It's still going to look like an active listing. Either way, once that status changes, it gets blasted out to all those websites as a new listing. So that should create activity. If you're not getting the activity, you've only been on the market for a week, give it a little time, see what happens. If it's still something that just you're not getting the showing traffic, then maybe you need to take a look at pricing and to see if there's anything that's changed over the past few weeks in your neighborhood that's going to affect the value of your home. So I hope that helps. If you'd like to connect with me personally, you've got some sort of issue real estate related, just want to talk, happy to help. My number, 843-345-1273, and my website, listingsincharleston.com. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. Really appreciate you tuning in. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning from 8 till 9. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. 843-345-1273.